This that's really interesting, and for those that have read the actual indictment, they list in it that there are six co-conspirators that are listed in this. So essentially, six people that the former president would use or were involved in his campaign or involved in his cabinet that were listed in this, but the names haven't been announced. So we're starting to try and figure out exactly who this potentially could be. And CBS News, this is a story that aired a little bit earlier today, discussed where exactly we are in this and who is helping in the investigation of the former president. I'm bringing the story now.
New York City Police Commissioner and Trump ally Bernard Kerik is cooperating with the special counsel's probe into efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. According to his lawyer, Kerik, who worked with Rudy Giuliani to uncover voter fraud, has already turned over thousands of documents. CBS News chief election campaign correspondent Robert Costa is in Washington following the very latest for us. Nice to see you, Robert. First, I want to know, do we know what information could be in those documents that Bernie Kerik turned over to the special counsel's office, and why do they want to talk to him next month?
It's good to be with you. Bernie Kerik, the former commissioner of the New York City Police Department, is a longtime ally of former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And in this November to January period of 2020, 2021, he was at the right hand of Giuliani again and again as Giuliani pushed this false claim that the 2020 election was rigged. And they tried to talk to different people in various states about efforts to uncover alleged fraud, which was never substantiated across the board as anything that would change the election. And Kerik has a real prism into what Trump was doing behind the scenes with Giuliani, what Giuliani's intent was with a lot of these meetings with state legislatures. So it's understandable he would be contacted by the special counsel as a potential key witness about Giuliani's efforts.
Some of Trump's GOP rivals are clearly speaking out against the former president. I want to play you some of that sound.
We cannot allow Donald Trump to be the Republican nominee again. We simply can't. And the reason we can is not only because he'll lose to Joe Biden, although that's the first reason, but the second reason is he let us down.
While his words were reckless, based on what I know, I'm not yet convinced that they were criminal. I'd rather that these issues and the judgment about his conduct on January 6th be left to the American people.
So there's clearly a difference in tone there, Robert. Chris Christie has perhaps been the most outspoken. Why do you think we're seeing so many of these other candidates a bit more apprehensive when it comes to the criticism of Trump?
Because they know that many Trump voters or longtime Trump supporters across the country have not yet broken with the Republican frontrunner. They're still standing with him politically, and even as he faces these legal challenges. So there's a hesitation to start having some kind of judgment on Trump as he faces action in court, and he could be possibly indicted on January 6th on a federal level, might be indicted in Georgia in the coming weeks for pressuring election officials in that state. That's an allegation that's been investigated for a long time now. And many Republicans are looking at this race and wondering maybe Trump could implode. The challenge they all have is Trump may not show up for that first Republican primary debate in Milwaukee in August. And if he does not show up, where is their opportunity for contrast? How are they going to get momentum? And there's a lot of apprehension right now inside of the Republican Party in the non-Trump wing, in the sense that even Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, with all of the money he has raised, his high profile, has struggled to generate any momentum, to get any traction in this race. And there's a thought among other camps that if DeSantis can't do it, how can they do it? And there's a bit of desperation at this moment about the political stakes they all face in the coming weeks.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of those candidates treading lightly. Trump is also attending a campaign fundraising event in New Orleans today. On Friday, he'll be speaking at the Republican Party of Iowa's Lincoln Dinner. What do his latest campaign efforts suggest?
It suggests that he needs to show up in Iowa. He's not taking it for granted because he recognizes, and his advisors have told me this privately, that Iowa, of all the contests, it's the first, and it's the one where someone could get a bounce early in the nominating race. For example, if someone who's conservative, popular with religious conservative voters, starts to win Iowa, maybe they start to get some attention in New Hampshire, and then further down the line in South Carolina and other states. So for the Trump campaign, stopping any rival in Iowa with a big win is going to be very important early next year.
All right, Bob, thank you for that analysis.
What are you doing?
So this brings us back to the D.C. courthouse, where the former president again has pled not guilty in his arraignment there, with the 4 charges brought toward him relating to the attempt to overturn the 2020 election, and the role that he placed in the January 6th insurrection. A couple of things here. First of all, yesterday in D.C., we had a report of a potential active shooter that ended up being a hoax call, but that happened 24 hours before the former president would be in D.C. In addition to that, the judge that is presiding over this has been a judge who has been involved in many January 6th related cases. Why is that important? Well, the track record is really important in a situation like this. And that track record from the previous cases that this judge has done, again, related to the January 6th insurrection and the commission related to it, has not been very lenient. In fact, this judge, according to the recent records from her, has been notoriously pretty tough on those that have been involved in the January 6th insurrection and those that have been brought forward to her in this. So I'm just keeping up with some live updates, courtesy of CBS News on this, and we're going to kind of read through this as we can together. So these are 4 felony charges, again accusing the former president of trying to overturn the 2020 election results. Again, he's pled not guilty in all of them as of right now. This is the 3rd round of charges being brought forward by Special Counsel Jack Smith. This is happening in the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., currently still underway. His attorneys, former president's attorneys, and the former president, only ones at that table. And Special Counsel Jack Smith is also there. The reason why we can't show you what it looks like inside, no cameras allowed in the courtroom. This has been very much so the standard over the past 2 times that the former president has been in court, and now the 3rd time it's been the same. No cameras allowed in court. CBS News has a reporter that's in there. Of course, we'll get their update as soon as the former president leaves the building. The former president was in New Jersey today, took his private plane to the Capitol at about 3 o'clock. The motorcade then picked him up, made their way downtown, and then to near the Capitol where this is currently taking place here. This is a historic indictment Tuesday. It's 4 felony counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. It was a 45-page indictment that said that Trump and co-conspirators, there were 6 of them, again, those were not listed. Curious if they will be announced at this arraignment. It's not seeming likely, but essentially it was schemes that were taking place. They listed multiple states: Arizona, Wisconsin, Atlanta, Michigan, Nevada, tons of different states, Arizona included, where the former president had made calls, or people had made calls on behalf of the former president, demanding basically to find votes somewhere. There was a direct quote from the president saying that he needed to find votes in Atlanta, in Georgia, after this. Also, while we are showing you these live pictures, we have 2 shots here. We have that one and this one. As we show you these, what you'll see first, if the former president, if that I mean, he's going to be released from court, but when that happens, you'll typically see staff members and reporters running out first, and that's when that kind of gives us an indication of what's happening. I know for the one that was in Manhattan, what they did is they let some reporters out, about a handful of reporters, they let them leave, then they waited, and then the former president left, then they waited, and then the rest of the reporters were allowed to leave in that. Let me see here. So in the indictment, let's go through this a little bit more. The indictment, it's very clear with the key point. And the key point is that they basically have to show that the former president knew that his claims of widespread voter fraud were incorrect, that they were false. And in the indictment, it says, and I quote, "The former president repeated and widely disseminated them anyway," them being false statements, "to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election." Now, the Trump administration has said that there is a freedom of speech. And that freedom of speech even covers lying. They've said that. However, it starts to erode when they say that the former president knew what he was saying was lies and ultimately was using it to harm an election, and that's where it breaks that felony. That's where it breaks the federal law in this. The former president has denounced Smith's attempts, he says, to get him not to run in 2024, saying that they are politically motivated. But again, this is the third arraignment in 4 months for criminal charges for the former president. As I mentioned earlier, for those that are joining us a little bit late here, in April, that's when the former president was in a Manhattan courthouse on state charges related to hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Then in June, a Miami court brought up federal charges in relation to the classified documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago Resort, which again is the president's main residence. Both those times, pled not guilty. He did the same again in this situation. So he pled not guilty, like I said, stood at the defense table. His attorney, John Lauro, was there as well. According to what CBS or ABC's, CBS's updates have said, he was read his rights and formally heard the charges. He stated his name and his age to the judge. The judge read the 4 charges and potential penalties that Trump faces, which include 20 years of maximum sentence in jail for the charge of conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding and obstruction of an official proceeding. According to the reports that I'm reading from the reporters that are on the scene with CBS, Trump looked at the judge as she slowly read the charges and the potential. She asked him if he understood, and he responded that yes, he understood. The judge had entered the courtroom about 20 minutes late, maybe 15 minutes late related to this. And yesterday, the topic of safety came up when that call came out, which again ended up being a hoax for an active shooter situation at these Senate office buildings. And the director of Capitol Police essentially said that, yeah, they are paying attention to what is needed. They are paying attention to the fact that they understand that there are going to be way more people than normal around here, protesters, those for the president as well, in this. So he understood completely. And he said that they were putting in increased attention to that. Who knows if that potentially played into also when the judge would make an appearance. But that is Magistrate Judge Maxila Upadhyaya, I believe is how it's said, entered the courtroom about 20 minutes late after the former president arrived on scene. And then, yeah, from there, the court proceedings took off in this. Again, for those that are just joining, for those who just jumped onto our digital stream here, if you've been watching on 19 News, we do not have our normal newscast right now as CBS has been breaking in with, again, the third time the former president has been indicted on federal charges here. Now we await the exit of the president and also any additional information. A couple of things we still don't know, and it's not looking like we're going to find out about this. In the indictment, the former president and 6 co-conspirators were listed. I believe 4 of them were said to have been attorneys. They did not list the names of those people in the indictment. There is a potential that those names are read out during this arraignment today. Not necessarily likely, but possible. The charges, of course, are read, and in addition to that, the plea from the former president, which, again, is not guilty. The former president has said multiple times that he believes that these are politically motivated and not accurate charges. He said that during the first 2 arraignments, saying it again during this arraignment in D.C. So now we have one in Manhattan, one in D.C., and another one in a Miami courthouse as well. Just waiting to see if there's any other updates here. Oh, this is another update coming of Jim Costa here, who is the political analyst for CBS News. He said that the special counsel's office, Jack Smith, special counsel, was appointed, has been covering a lot of this, still continuing its investigation behind the scenes. That's what Robert Costa, excuse me. He noted that it is a lot of work simultaneously going on inside the Justice Department related to this and the other cases as well. So the indictment only tells part of the story, and the investigators likely have more evidence. That, again, according to Robert Costa with CBS News. Let's see here. Oh, another thing in this. Wait, let's just listen in.
We are told from inside the courtroom that the hearing is now over.
Okay.
Former President Trump will leave the courthouse imminently.
Okay, so we officially know now that the proceedings are done. The former president pled not guilty, was read all of the charges that he faces, was most likely explained to him next time he will be in court what is needed. The discovery phase begins now. So we can expect the former president to be leaving this D.C. courthouse any moment now. A motorcade will take him back to the private airstrip in which he flew in from New Jersey, and he'll be gone. The last 2 times he's faced arraignments, he has had speeches later that night Unsure right now if that's going to take place. However, it's been essentially political rallies every time, so I'm sure that there could be something related to this. So wanted to bring up a couple of crucial points here. In the indictment, which I read 45 pages, you can find it on our website if you need it, the former vice president, Mike Pence, was named dozens of times, became a very key witness in this. If this goes to court, which it seems like it's headed that way, and if it goes to a full trial, he's going to be a key witness. So this could become a very, very even bigger deal than we're already anticipating for that fact. Because, remember, 2024 is the next presidential election. Former President Donald Trump has announced his candidacy. Former Vice President Mike Pence has announced his candidacy. This has a chance to bleed in to the primaries and ultimately into the main election. These things take time. I want everybody to remember this. A grand jury needs to decide if charges can be brought. That's just the beginning. Once the grand jury does bring those charges forward, then we get the arraignment, which we are seeing now. From there, there is a discovery phase, which normally is a few months. This one could go way, way longer. Great. Okay, now we know the next court. Oh, this is actually soon.
That's the latest of the 3 options.
So the next court appearance for this one's going to be Monday, August 28th. In the previous 2 incidents, the next court appearance was months away. So that is that's very soon. So yeah, the next court appearance for the former president, Monday, August 28th. That leaves us 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Is that 3 weeks? Let's do some math here, Jeff. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so it leaves us basically 4 weeks out from that next court date. The reason why I sounded surprised when I was handed this by our assistant news director here is because the previous 2 times, again, this is the 3rd indictment we have seen for the former president. In the previous 2 times, when we have gotten the information on the next court date, it has been months out. And by months, I mean like 6 months out. I know for the one, we're not expected to have the former president back in court until 2024. So yeah, this is very soon. Jack Smith had said that this would be a quicker trial than normal. They want to get this thing rolling. Former president saying that he wants that as well. So it does seem that the next court appearance, yeah, if that's going to actually take place on August 28th, that's a big deal. And then my assistant news director saying that this is actually the latest option that they provided here. So I'm going to go back to our TV. Okay, yep. So Trump's first hearing before. I'm going to show you what I'm looking at, which is this right here. The first hearing before the U.S. judge Chetkin went out to, who's taking over the case now. Is going to be August 28th. That's at 10 a.m. So they agreed to waive Trump's appearance for that date. So the former president doesn't have to be there, but his representation does. Let's go scroll down a little bit. These are the conditions for release here. Okay, so both prosecutor and the defense agreed to the conditions of the former president's release pending trial. Again, pending trial, keyword there. Number 1. Trump cannot violate federal laws. He must appear in court as required, which again is not going to be that August 28th one, and he needs to sign an appearance bond. He is not allowed to communicate about the facts of the case to anyone he knows to be a witness, except through attorneys. That's another key thing. The judge also reminded Trump that it is criminal to intimidate a juror, bribe anyone, or obstruct the administration of justice, a standard disclaimer in a criminal case. Asked if he understood, the former president said yes, he understood. Back out live now to this D.C. courthouse as we await the former president leaving the building. I'm unsure if we'll get this shot here. Is there? There's not a different.
Yeah, let me look.
Okay, we're going to look to see if there's a different shot available, just to see, because I doubt that the former president would leave through these doors. Maybe he would.
No.
I mean, I guess he could be leaving through these ones, but
What is this? They all look pretty much the same. Let me get one other look here. There's something to find.
so again, we got this update maybe 5 minutes ago that the court proceedings are finished. Now we just await for President Trump to leave the courthouse here. Again, following a not guilty plea in this arraignment. 3rd arraignment for federal charges, 3rd not guilty plea for it. In total, 75 complete charges have been brought against the former president. All right, so we have no other shots. I'll show you just both the ones that we have here. It's essentially the same thing, but I want to make sure that everybody at home is aware of what we're seeing. So these are both of the shots, right? It's the same one, it's just a different angle of it. Or no, it's different. So those are the two entrances. Okay, so yeah, we'll be able to hopefully see him in one of them. I think that it was reported that we would potentially hear from him or his lawyers at some point. Let me see here. Because of course, if we hear from them, we'll make sure that we stream that as soon as possible. No, not seeing that, though. I did hear that over from CBS there. Let me see if there's anything. All right, so still unknown on that. Let me see what else I can find here. But again, the former president's going to be back. His lawyers will be back in court on August 28th. He will not physically be back in court. They have waived that. They don't need him there, according to what CBS has said. Inside Trump motorcade. All right, so the former president did leave court apparently.
Stations once again, CBS News, Kate Zuckerman, you're watching as former President Trump leaves the courthouse.
Okay, so he did leave the courthouse.
We will
got out from a different area. All right, so then he did leave. We were not able to see it on there. The former president is now out of the courthouse. A not guilty plea for the former president and the 4 charges related to the January 6th insurrection and his responsibility, according to the courts, to try and prevent people from overturning an election that potentially he fueled. We have much more to come on this and many other stories of the day, starting at 5 o'clock on our coverage over on CBS. That's where our national coverage will wrap up and our local coverage will begin. But again, the former president has officially left the courthouse. If he is going to be speaking later or any more updates from that, we of course will provide them to you both on air and right here online. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson, 19 News. Have a great day and great night. Much more to come, again, both on air and online.
19 News, now streaming on Samsung Smart TV. Search for channel 1035.
For some rain in the mid-Atlantic region, including the D.C. area. So, just stay weather aware.
All right. Stay weather aware, my friends. There you go. Sandra's letting you know what to do. Are you going to go?
I think so.
All right.
I think so.
They allow dogs there?
I don't know which one I'm going to go with, but maybe they do.
All right.
You're watching Local News Live.
We'll be right back.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
You're watching Local News Live, the one place you need for live coverage of national news from trusted local journalists who know the story best. Breaking news on the scene, showing you the story as it's happening.